Hello students. In continuation with our studies of immunology, today we are going to learn few basic aspects of second line of body defense. So if a pathogen makes its entry through the first line of defense, that means somehow it is able to enter itself through the skin and other covering membranes. Then the body shows what we call the second line of defense. That means the breaching of the first line of defense by the pathogen initiates the second line of immune response. So what it is basically made up of? The second line of defense consists of inherent or internal but non-specific type of defense mechanism. And this particular mechanism of response is triggered, as I told you, by the entry of pathogen, and not exactly the entire pathogen, but some special areas on the surface of pathogen which is said to be antigenic. And so antigen is a marker protein which usually we call the poisonous or pathogen or toxic substance which will be having specific epitopes. So that is located on the surface of the bacteria or the viruses, and the body will recognize this foreign material as non-self. So thereby our body will initiate the second line of body defense mechanisms. So thereby each pathogen has its own highly specific antigens or the epitopes on the surface which will initiate the mechanisms, various mechanisms or the responses of our body. So thereby we'll try to understand that innate immunity not only includes the first line of defense mechanism which we have studied in the last class, it also includes various other types of responses of the body which will help the body to free itself from the disease causing pathogens. So these responses we can sum up under two headings, that is the humoral mechanisms or humoral responses. So humoral responses are nothing but the part of second line of defense mechanism where we are all born with various types of proteins which occur in the blood plasma. Obviously, when the pathogen enters through the skin, because whenever the skin gets ruptured or when we get hurt, obviously the pathogens, they enter the tissues. So in the tissues, there is a readily supplied blood. So obviously, pathogens, they make their entry into the blood. So thereby they confront various types of plasma proteins, which include lytic enzymes called lysozymes, which are usually stored in the lysosomes of the cells. Then various other types of basic proteins called complement proteins. So these complement proteins are nothing but varieties of enzymes which will bring about cascade of reactions to fight against the pathogen. Similarly, we have interferons, another group of cytokines which help the body to fight against the intracellular pathogen. And apart from that, we have antibodies. Antibodies are specifically produced immunoglobulins by the body of the organism against the specific antigens. So all these responses of the plasma protein are the inherent abilities of our body to produce various types of plasma proteins to eliminate the pathogens. We are going to study under the humoral response or the humoral mechanism of second line of defense. Similarly, we have the cellular defense mechanisms. So where we'll be studying the role of various types of WBC cells. So we know that in the blood, apart from RBC cells, we have varieties of WBC cells. We are all born with these cells. And you all must have studied in your lower classes that these WBC cells are called the leukocytes, and they are the soldiers of our body to fight against the germs. So we have varieties of WBC cells like granulocytes, agranulocytes, Apart from that, we have natural killer cells. Among granulocytes, we have neutrophils, we have basophils, and also we have the eosinophils, basophils, and we have monocytes, lymphocytes, and agranulocytes. Apart from that, we have natural killer cells and also the activated monocytes, which are called the macrophages. Similarly, the basophils, when they get activated, they are called the mast cells. So all these cells, they constitute what we call the cellular defense mechanism. Just briefly, we'll go through the blood count just to understand what is the number of WBC cells in a normal human being. So usually in a normal blood count, RBC cells will be very high in number. They range from 4 to 5.5 million cells per liter of blood. Similarly, we have the blood platelets. They constitute for about 1.5 lakhs to 4 lakhs per ml of blood. Similarly, we have the leukocytes, but you can see the number of leukocytes. Usually, it will be very less. That means only 4,000 to say about 10,000 per ml of blood. And among the WBC cells, we have varieties of cells, but among the WBC cells, the number of neutrophils happens to be the highest. So they constitute from 40 to 75% of the total number of WBC cells. Similarly, eosinophils, they form about 6% of total WBC cells. Basophils, they may form only 1% of total WBC cells. Whereas lymphocytes, again, because they're very active cells, the percentage may range from 15 to 50% based on the need of the body among the WBC cells. Again, the number of monocytes is relatively less when compared to the lymphocytes, and the percentage of these monocytes will be 0 to 12% of the total WBC cells. So that means in a normal individual, the number of leukocytes or WBC cells will be around 10,000, 4,000 to 10,000 in a normal case. Now, we'll go into little detail of all this defensive cells or the cellular barriers. So how do we identify them? What is their structure and what is their function? We'll try to learn in a nutshell. Then coming to the two types of WBC cells, these leukocytes, as the name indicates, they are colorless, whereas RBC cells, you can see they will be red in color. And again, the RBC cells, they will be small in size, and the RBC cells, they don't have the nucleus. But leukocytes will be able to identify because of the large size, and they will be colorless, white in color. Thereby, we usually go for staining them with the usual hematoxylin and eosin also we can stain. And the nucleus, again, the cells also will be large in size. Apart from that, the nucleus also will be multi-lobed. It may be bilobed, trilobed, or tetralobed, like that. So thereby, we'll be able to differentiate the WBC cells from the RBC cells very easily. So among the WBC cells, again, we have different kinds. The first and foremost type of WBC cells which occur in large number are nothing but the neutrophils. So in the event of a break in the skin, neutrophils are the first to arrive at the site of injury and attempt to engulf and destroy the foreign invaders. So thereby, neutrophils, they form 50 to 60% of WBC, and that they travel throughout the body in search of pathogens. That's why I call them the Hoysala policeman of our body. Just like Hoysala police, these neutrophils always, they will be traveling throughout the body in search of pathogens, whether there is an infection or not. But always there will be entry of pathogens in the body. You know, our body will be continuously interacting with the environment. So during the inflammation, so they catch hold of the bacteria, that is neutrophils. They migrate to the site of infection and they try to catch hold of the bacteria, and usually these neutrophils, they will try to recognize the site of injury by means of chemotaxis. That is, in the site of injury, there will be release of lot of cytokines. These are the plasma proteins. So these cytokines, they send the signals to the neutrophils, and they inform them about the site of injury. So thereby the neutrophils, they migrate to the site of injury and they initiate phagocytosis, which is highly specific. What I mean to say is that the phagocytosis is not simple phagocytosis, it is receptor mediated phagocytosis, which ensure that only unwanted particles are ingested by the neutrophils. So during the conflict, some of the neutrophils may also die and they may mix it up with the dead tissues of the body. Those are injured body tissues. And some of the living cells also may be, living white blood corpuscles also may be trapped with this debris. So together they form pus. And this pus, color of the pus also indicates the nature of infection. What I mean to say is that if the pus is yellow in color, it indicates the bacterial infection, while the white color pus indicates the fungal infection. So thereby, you can see that whenever a person is ill, the examination of the pus also indicates or helps the doctor in treating the person. So thereby, formation of pus, you can see it is a sign of healing, initiation of healing. So coming to the next type of WBC cells. So these are again granulocytes. So as the name indicates, in the cytoplasm of these cells, you will see lot of vesicular granules. Unlike the neutrophils, where the nucleus is multilobed, in the case of eosinophils and basionophils, the nucleus is bilobed or horseshoe shaped. And the eosinophils, they react in the case of infections by large pathogens, like we have roundworms, tapeworms, and other nematode worms. When they enter the body, and these eosinophils, they try to produce lot of chemical substances, and they also help in the formation of antigen antibody complexes, so that the pathogen will be immobilized and it will be killed by the eosinophils. So that is how the eosinophils, they help us to fight against the large pathogens. Similarly, we have basionophils. Basionophils, again, they are also granulocytes. So thereby you can see a lot of cytoplasmic granules, because the presence of excessive cytoplasmic granules indicates that they are secretory in function. And these basionophils, whenever they confront the antigens, particularly allergic antigens, which are called the allergens. Allergens means they are non-pathogenic or non-harmful antigens. They start releasing heparin, that is an anticoagulant, which will stop the coagulation of blood temporarily in the initial stages of injury. And also basophils, they also are involved in the release of histamine. So these histamines, actually they cause the inflammations, or they initiate the inflammatory response. So thereby, in the case of allergic reactions or the allergic diseases like asthma, you will see the lot of basionophils in the blood. So thereby, whenever the basionophils, when they get activated, they transform themselves into mast cells. So these mast cells, they occur in the connective tissues and also in the mucous membranes and regulate the inflammatory responses. So that means they basically cause the bronchodilations. Then they are also associated with, thereby, the allergic diseases, and the acute allergy or the rapid allergy is also called the anaphylaxis. So this is mainly due to the release of histamines by the body as a response of the body to the invading pathogens. Then coming to the next type of WBC cells, apart from granulocytes, we have agranulocytes also. So in the agranulocytes, we have two types of cells, monocytes and lymphocytes. So monocytes are the chief phagocytes. They also circulate in the blood for 1 to 2 days before entering into the body tissues, which usually come in contact with the environment, and they transform themselves into macrophages. So these macrophages are versatile cells that reside in the tissues and produce wide range of chemicals, including enzymes, complement proteins and regulatory factors like interleukins. So these macrophages act as scavengers because of the phagocytic function. They act as scavengers by removing the worn out cells and also other debris of the dead cells. Not only that, they also function as antigen presenting cells that activate the adaptive immunity. What is meant by antigen presenting cells? No doubt all our body cells have got the capacity to identify the non-self antigen, but there are some special cells like dendritic cells, macrophages, which will help our body in the identification of non-self antigens. So these cells, they are called the antigen presenting cells. So these macrophages, they also engulf the pathogen and present the antigen. They locate the antigen or the epitope which causes the disease, and they present this antigen to the other white blood corpuscles of adaptive immunity, particularly the B cells and T cells. So thereby they stimulate the adaptive immunity. The stimulated macrophages, they also therefore bring about an explosive increase in the number of leukocytes by producing colony stimulating factors. So colony stimulating factors are again special plasma proteins. So these colony stimulating factors, they travel through the blood to the bone marrow, where they stimulate the production and release of number of WBC cells, which is called clonal expansion. So mainly there will be enormous increase in the number of neutrophils at the time of injury or at the time of entry of pathogen. So you can see here that the number of neutrophils in a normal human being will be usually about 10,000 maximum, 4,000 to 10,000. But in the case of injury, within no time, because of this clonal expansion, because of the presentation of antigen by the macrophages to the neutrophils, we'll see the number of neutrophils, they may be raised to 1 million or 2 million per ml of blood as per the need of the body. So that is the power of clonal expansion. I hope you have followed the function of macrophages. So macrophages are nothing but activated monocytes. Monocytes, they themselves, they are formed from the monoblast cells. So apart from these monocytes or macrophages, we also have lymphocytes among the agranulocytes. So there are two types of, again, agranulocytes, monocytes and lymphocytes. Again, among the lymphocytes, we have two types of cells, lymphocytes. So the B lymphocytes and also T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes are the cells which are formed in the bone marrow, and they undergo maturation also in the bone marrow. And these cells, they can be identified because of the large single nucleus with a very little cytoplasmic content. But when they undergo maturation, they transform themselves into plasma cells. So these plasma cells, they are involved mainly in the production of antibodies. So antibodies, they'll go and bind with the antigen, forming antigen antibody complex. So thereby the phagocytosis of this pathogens will be facilitated. That is how the B lymphocytes are important in bringing about the humoral responses. So apart from that, we also have T lymphocytes. So the T lymphocytes are also the lymphocytes which are formed in the bone marrow, but they undergo maturation in the special gland that is called the thymus gland, which is located just above the heart. So these T lymphocytes, they are again three types. T helper cells are there, T regressor, suppressor are there. Apart from that, we have mainly the cytotoxic cells. So these cells, they produce cytokines which will lyse the microbe, which will attack the microbe. Some of the large lymphocytes, they are also called the natural killer cells. So natural killer cells are nothing but large cytotoxic lymphocytes that can kill the very big cells like cancer cells also, or the tumor cells also. particularly in the case of intracellular infections by the viruses also, viral cancers also. So apart from that, we have one more group of cells called the dendritic cells. So these dendritic cells, they are again phagocytic in function, and they are found in the organs or the tissues which directly come in contact with the environment, like skin, nose, lungs, stomach, and intestine. They also act as a link between body tissues and also both innate and adaptive immunity, as they are also antigen presenting cells to the T cells. They also present the antigen. That means they are also phagocytic in function, just like macrophages. They try to engulf the pathogen, and they try to locate at the breakdown the antigen and present the epitope to the other WBC cells. So thereby dendritic cells are also antigen presenting cells. So in a nutshell, we see that all the types of blood cells, whether RBC cells or WBC cells, they are all formed from the bone marrow. They are all derived in the bone marrow from the hemopoietic stem cells, and these hemopoietic stem cells are initially undifferentiated cells. They are totipotent cells. They have the potentiality to transform themselves into any other type of cell based on the need of the body. So thereby the pluripotent cells, they can transform themselves into lymphoid stem cells or myeloid stem cells. The lymphoid stem cells, they undergo maturation in the lymphoid organ like thymus to transform them into T lymphocytes. Whereas some of the lymphoid stem cells, they can directly convert themselves into natural killer cells. These are the large lymphocytes which are cytotoxic in function. Apart from that, the lymphoid stem cells, some of the lymphoid stem cells, they also undergo maturation in the bone marrow itself to form the B lymphocytes. When they undergo further maturation, the B lymphocytes, they form the plasma cells. Similarly, we have myeloid stem cells, which are again formed from the same pluripotent stem cells. So these myeloid stem cells, they can transform themselves into megakaryocytes, which are going to form the RBC along with the formation of the blood platelets. Apart from them, some of the myeloid stem cells, they transform themselves into monocytes. These are again a type of agranulocytes, which are going to transform themselves into macrophages, which are phagocytic in function. Then we also have a large number of granulocytes like neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils. These are all formed from the myeloid stem cells. So what we understand is that various types of cells are formed from the hemopoietic stem cells of the bone marrow. That means origin of all these WBC cells and RBC cells is from the same bone marrow only. So this is another slide showing the same differentiation of cells. So you can see from the myeloid progenitor, we see the formation of the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. These are all granulocytes because you can see in the cytoplasm of these cells, there are granules, cytoplasmic granules. And these basophils, particularly when they undergo maturation, they form the mast cells. That's why in the mast cells also we see a lot of cytoplasmic granules. Similarly, the monocytes, when they undergo maturation, they transform themselves into macrophages, which are having the pseudopodia. That means it indicates that they are also phagocytic in function. Similarly, some of the myeloid progenitors, directly they can undergo maturation to form the dendritic cells. Dendritic cells will have elongated finger-like pseudopodia. They are also phagocytic in function. Then apart from that, the lymphoid progenitors, they transform themselves into B cells and T cells. B cells further undergo maturation to plasma cells. T cells, they form the T. Effector cells are the cytotoxic T cells. And again, we have different types of T cells. But apart from that, some of the lymphoid progenitors can directly convert themselves into natural killer cells. Again, they are nothing but the cytotoxic T cells, but they are quite big in size. So this is another slide which will make us understand that whatever cells, blood cells, we study under the WBC cells are the soldiers of the body. These cells, they function as a whole. Particularly, in the case of both innate and also adaptive immunity. So you can see here we have common cells like natural killer cells and also T cells, which will take up the function of invading or fighting against the invading pathogens by making use of both cell-mediated response and also humoral response. So that means there is an overlapping of innate immunity and also adaptive immunity, though we are going to study adaptive immunity under separate heading just to make it convenient for our studies. But remember that all these inherent abilities are second line of defense, also includes some of the responses which we are going to study under the adaptive immunity. The mechanism of action is same. That means in the second line of response also, we have B cells showing humoral response. We have T cells showing cell-mediated response. We have mast cells, which are activated basophils, which show their response in the allergic reactions. We have macrophages and dendritic cells showing phagocytosis. We have natural killer cells, again killing the enemy cells, and complement proteins, which will immobilize, cytolyze, and also opsonize the pathogens. And we also have neutrophils, which are again phagocytic in function. We have eosinophils, which will try to fight against the large pathogens. So in a nutshell, briefly, we have tried to understand various types of cellular barriers which help us to fight against the germs or pathogens. And we are all born with this WBC cells. So we'll be able to identify eosinophils and neutrophils in a slide in the laboratory. The slide, when you prepare, it will look like this. You can differentiate the RBC cells are small in size and they are many in number, and without the nucleus, they are round and discoidal. There's eosinophils, they have horseshoe shape, bilobed or trilobed nucleus, whereas neutrophils, they have multilobed nucleus. So thereby we'll be able to differentiate neutrophils from the eosinophils. Similarly, the basophils will be able to identify because they have exceptionally large amount of cytoplasmic granules in the cytoplasm. Thereby we'll be able to identify the basophils in the slide. Monocytes, they have a large single nucleus, so thereby they are different from the other WBC cells, and of course they also look different from the RBC cells. Similarly, we have monocytes which will undergo maturation to form the macrophages. So when they undergo maturation, they form the pseudopodia. So that means they are phagocytic in function. So in a natural slide blood sample, you will see monocytes transforming themselves into macrophages. That means they'll be highly enlarged cells. Similarly, the dendritic cells will be identified in the lab because of the elongated pseudopodia. You can see here the dendritic cells, and also the mast cells can be identified because of the oval shape with a degenerating nucleus, but exceptionally large vesicular cytoplasm with lot of cytoplasmic granules, just because the mast cells, they are going to produce the histamines. So thereby you see lot of granules, histamine stored in the granules. So that is how we'll be able to identify the cells in our lab. So we have come to the end of the study of cellular barrier. So basically we have two types of lineage of cells. We have myeloid lineage, where we see the formation of basically the phagocytic cells. So these monocytes particularly, they transform themselves into macrophages, and they'll be found in the tissues. Though they are short-lived, they will be able to fight against the invading germs by means of phagocytosis. Of course, macrophages are nothing but the derivatives of monocytes, and they also play a very important role both in innate and also adaptive immunity. Similarly, we have lymphoid lineage of cells, which includes various types of lymphocytes. Large lymphocytes are called natural killer cells. So they are having granular cytoplasm, because they also secrete lot of cytokines. So thereby they participate in antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity, which we are going to study. But this cell mediated cytotoxicity is common for both innate and adaptive immunity of the body. Similarly, we have small lymphocytes, which include B lymphocytes, which are going to produce antibodies when they undergo maturation. And we have T cells, small T cells called the T helper cells, and also TC cells. And we also have mainly T suppressor cells also. All these small lymphocytes, they mainly help the body both in innate and also adaptive immunity. So this is the lineage of lymphocytes, that is, they undergo maturation in the lymphoid organs. So what are these lymphoid organs? So in the body, apart from the main circulatory system, there is a supplementary, or we can say complementary circulatory system called the lymphatic system. So this lymphatic system consists of lymph nodes, which will try to store the lymphocytes, and lymph capillaries through which the lymph will flow. So in the blood capillaries, we know that the blood will flow. Similarly, in the lymph capillaries, the lymph will be flowing. Then what is this lymph? Lymph contains a variety of substances like proteins, salts, glucose, fats, water, then lot of WBC cells. So, but unlike the blood, lymph does not contain any RBC. That means blood without RBC can be called lymph. Why? Because the blood capillaries, they cannot reach each and every cell. So thereby the blood will ooze out of the blood capillaries, and it fills the cavities between the tissues or the fluids which are there in the extracellular surfaces. So this extracellular fluid is nothing but the lymph when it gets collected into the lymphatic vessels. So the lymph is collected from the blood vessels and the tissues, and it filters the foreign bodies. The main function of the lymph is to free the blood from the foreign bodies or the bacteria or the pathogens. And so thereby the lymph captures, it collects the pathogens and brings these pathogens mainly to the lymph nodes where we have stored lymphocytes. So they will try to destroy these pathogens. So the lymph nodes store the WBC cells that are added to the lymph as it flows towards the heart. So thereby lymph nodes also act as filters of the blood, because they try to remove the pathogens which are there in the blood. So you can see, apart from this lymphatic system, we also have important primary lymphoid organs like thymus and bone marrow. So we already studied this. The bone marrow is a hemopoietic tissue where various types of WBC cells are formed, and some of the WBC cells, which are called T lymphocytes, they undergo maturation in the thymus. Thymus is a special lymphoid organ or a gland which is located just above the heart. Apart from that, we have various types of lymphocyte storing organs which form the secondary organs or the secondary lymphoid organs. They include tonsils, which we have studied in the previous class, adenoids, these are also lymphoid tissues. Apart from that, we have a lot of lymph nodes. These are nothing but the small round kidney shaped structure which store a lot of lymphocytes. Again, we have the spleen, particularly the white pulp of the spleen will have a lot of WBC cells, and Peyer's patches. These are also again groups of lymph nodes in the intestinal coils. So like that, we have all over the body lot of lymph nodes distributed, particularly in the groins and also under armpits. Particularly in the case of birds, we have a special structure that is called the bursa fabricus, which is found in the cloacal region of the bird. Thereby the B cells, B lymphocytes in the case of birds, they undergo maturation in the bursa fabricus, but in the case of humans, the B cells, B lymphocytes particularly, they undergo maturation in the bone marrow itself. But in the case of birds, just like in the case of humans, there is also thymus, but this thymus gland will be active in the case of humans only till the age of 12. After the age of 12, usually it starts degenerating. So thereby, we can see the immune system develops better in the case of humans till the age of 12. Thereby, usually the vaccination program is taken up widely only for the children below the age of 12, because the immune system, the development of the immune system degenerates after the age of 12. So coming back to the second line of defense. So as I told in the beginning itself, second line of defense can be studied under two major headings, that is various cellular barriers which will try to arrest and kill the pathogen. And again, the second important type of response includes the humoral response. So the innate immune response includes humoral response in the form of phagocytosis. Already you know what is meant by phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is observed by two types of WBC cells mainly. Those are nothing but the macrophages. These are activated monocytes, and neutrophils. Neutrophils, they are large in number, and these cells, both the cells, they involve themselves in the phagocytosis by selecting or by identifying the pathogen through a receptor mediator mechanism. So thereby the phagocytosis is not a general phagocytosis, it is a receptor mediated specific phagocytosis. So thereby phagocytosis is nothing but selective capturing, engulfment of the pathogen through the formation of pseudopodia and breakdown of bacterial pathogen, so that the body will be free from infection. So in the innate immune response, all these cells which we have studied, they involve themselves by two mechanisms. That is, one by phagocytosis, the second is by the production of various types of cytokines. Then we'll see how the phagocytosis of microorganism occurs. You can see in the slide, the macrophages typically they are trying to engulf the bacterium, and they, after engulfing the bacterium, they try to lyse the bacterium by mixing the bacterial contents with the lytic enzymes which are present in the lysosomes of the WBC cells. So the lysosomes, we all know very well, they store the lytic enzymes which are called the lysozymes. So these lysozymes, they try to hydrolyze the dead and decaying bacteria. So that is how the phagocytosis will be completed by the phagocytes. So apart from that, in the inflammatory responses, in the second line of defense, we see that there will be few important symptoms appearing in the case of injured tissues, which includes the swelling, redness, increased in the heat of the body part, and also pain. So these responses together, they form the inflammatory responses. So any break in the skin will allow the bacteria obviously to enter the body. So the site of injury initiates reactions by the body called inflammatory reactions or inflammatory responses, which include swelling, redness, fever, and pain. So when an injury occurs, a capillary, the capillaries of the tissues and also the cells in the tissues, obviously they get ruptured or injured. So this causes the release of histamines and kinines. So these histamines and kinines particularly, they cause what we call vasodilation or dilation of the blood capillaries, so that the wall of the blood capillaries becomes more permeable to the WBC cells, and WBC cells, they try to leak out from the blood capillaries into the tissues. So which causes the accumulation of excess of blood in the and other body fluids in the damaged tissues, which causes obviously the swelling because of the excessive accumulation of the blood. Of course, blood is red in color, so thereby obviously the tissues, they also turn red in color. So due to the increased accumulation of all these fluids with lot of extra biochemical molecules like histamine and kinins also causes increased body temperature, that is due to the generation of extra heat, which we are going to discuss under the separate heading fever. Then coming back to the inflammatory responses, in the inflammatory responses we also come across one more important response, that is nothing but the generation of the pain. So the injured area also will be painful, that is due to the expansion of tissues which are causing mechanical pressure on the nerve endings. So in all over the body, we have the nerve endings like Pacinian and also mucinous corpuscles. So these nerve endings, they will be pressurized. Not only pressurized, they also will feel the pain because of the pain mediators, because of the swelling, and also because of the kinins which stimulate these nerve endings, and this causes the pain. But pain is useful to the body. In what way it is useful to the body? If the injured body part is not feeling the pain, or if the pain is not felt in the injured tissues, obviously the person will try to make use of the same injured body part for various other function, and the injured body part may get further injured, or it may get further hurt, so which may cause more damage to the already injured body part. So thereby, if the body part becomes painful, then the person will try to protect the injured body part. So in that way, the pain is said to be useful inflammatory response. Similarly, the inflammatory responses also initiate the coating of antigens on the bacterial surface with the antibodies. So thereby the bacteria and viruses, they get immobilized. So when the antigen combines with the antibodies, they form the antigen-antibody complex. So the formation of antigen-antibody complex usually initiate the phagocytosis, and also it attracts various types of phagocytes to the site of injury. So in that way, all these types of mechanical or we can say biochemical reactions or the humoral responses are initiated during the inflammatory response. So this characterizes this the inflammatory responses. Therefore, they are characterized by a reddening of the area, swelling or the inflammation of the area, and also development of the pain. Particularly if the infection continues for a longer period, it also causes the fever. So in a nutshell, when a pathogen enters our body, an inflammatory response is triggered by the damaged tissues. As you see here, the blood vessels, they dilate so that the blood flows to the injured area in excess. The increased flow of blood to the injured area causes the inflammation, and it also raises the temperature of the site of infection. So due to which there will be inflammation or swelling. So this is another slide showing the inflammatory response. You can see in a healthy skin, there is no skin injury. So thereby we see all other tissues are also in a normal condition. But if the skin gets injured, normally you can see there will be formation of the blood clot, and there will be entry of the pathogens there. So thereby you can see vasodilation. The membranes of the blood capillaries, they become more permeable, and they allow the blood cells to flow through the blood wall of blood capillary into the damaged tissues. So in the damaged area, you can see excessive flow of blood cells, including various types of WBC cells, and WBC cells, they start phagocytic function. So thereby the whole area becomes red in color and also swollen because of the flushing of and also accumulation of various body fluids in the injured area. So thereby the person is also going to feel the pain, because the increased accumulation of body fluids in that particular injured area causes extra pressure on the nerve endings, causing the pain. So all this accumulation of cytokines in the injured area may also cause the increased body heat. That's why usually the injured area may also be felt hot. So apart from that, if the battle is not over within a stipulated time, or in the case of very long lag period, usually fever is also resulted. So during an infection, macrophages may release cytokines such as interleukins. So they travel to the hypothalamus and they induce a change in the thermostat-like setting in the brain. Hypothalamus is located in the brain. So whenever there is an infection, as we know that lot of cytokines are released in the blood as an inflammatory response. So these cytokines, they also travel to the brain. When they reach the hypothalamus cells, they sense the increased concentration of cytokines and they try to set the thermostat of our body, just like the thermostat of laboratory where we can set the temperature like 30 or 40 or 50. The hypothalamus is also having capacity to set the body temperature. So the hypothalamus will set a new normal temperature as a higher temperature. The higher temperature will be set, a raised body temperature will be set as a new normal temperature. That means the normal temperature of human beings is 37 degrees centigrade, but the hypothalamus will set 38 degrees centigrade as a normal body temperature. Thereby the body parts, they feel cold because of the previous body temperature. So thereby the various body parts, they try to increase the body temperature to the new normal level. So thereby our body will shunt the blood away from the skin to the mainly to the muscles. So it makes the body feel cold and the body starts shivering, so that while the shivering goes on, you can see the muscles will be contracting enormously by the muscular contraction. Because of muscle contraction, you can see a lot of heat is generated, and this metabolic heat is utilized by the body to raise the body temperatures to the new normal body temperature, which is set by the hypothalamus. So thereby our body, our brain, or the hypothalamus is intentionally trying to raise the body temperature. So these raised body temperatures, they help the body to enhance the rate of humoral responses. That is why initial stages of fever is definitely advantageous to the body. Once the microbes or pathogens are killed, are removed from the blood, obviously the concentration of cytokines goes down. So thereby hypothalamus will sense that the body is hale and healthy now, and thereby it will try to reset the thermostat of the body to the lower temperatures. So thereby the body will feel hot now and the body will start sweating. So thereby you can see usually when you have the high fever, if sweating occurs, immediately after the sweating, the body temperature will come down or the fever will come down. So you'll see the regular cycles of shivering and sweating, particularly in the viral infections, and also in the case of malarial infections like malarial fever, where you'll see the shivering, which causes the raise in the body temperature, which causes the fever, followed by the sweating, which lowers the body temperature. Particularly, this cyclic chills and sweating during the course of infection are very common, but the fever can be dangerous if the temperature becomes too high as a systemic response to the increased body temperature, because of the lot of toxins released by the pathogens and also by the release of pyrogens by the body, leukocytes. You see there may be decreased in the rate of heartbeat and also the low BP caused, which is nothing but the septic shock. Again, the septic shock, a very high fever is fatal. The person may enter into coma and it may lead to the death. Thereby, if the body temperatures raises beyond 102 degrees Fahrenheit, for example, usually the doctor will ask us to go for the cold pack, and usually we apply the cold pack on the forehead, because you know that the hypothalamus is present in the brain, which is going to regulate the body temperature of the individual. So thereby it is always advantageous to apply the cold pack on the forehead of the patient who is having very high fever. So just remember that if the body temperature is around 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 101 or up to 102 also, it is definitely advantageous to the patient because it helps the patient in enhancing the rate of immune reactions. Thereby it helps in the quick healing. So thereby the body may overcome an infection faster if the fever is allowed to run, because it causes the fever inhibits the growth of many microbes, and it also facilitates the phagocytosis and also speedy recovery. So thereby we understand that fever is advantageous to the body. So fever is caused as a abnormal phenomena of very high body temperature because of the release of pyrogens. Pyrogens are nothing but the chemicals that set the thermostat in the brain to the higher set point. These are nothing but mainly the interleukins or the cytokines. Similarly, a mild or moderate fever also helps the body to fight the bacterial infections by slowing the growth of bacteria and also by stimulating body defense responses. Then coming to the next part of humoral response. So under the humoral response, or the second line of body defense, we also have a group of proteins or the enzymes called complement system. So these complement proteins are the systems. They help in attacking the cell membranes. So the complement system is a biochemical cascade of immune system. That means a group of enzymes, they involve themselves in varieties of biochemical reactions which will bring up the lysis of the wall of pathogen. You all must have studied similar type of cascade of biochemical reactions in the case of blood clotting mechanism. So ultimate clotting of blood is brought about by various types of a chain of biochemical reactions. Similarly, a chain of biochemical reactions with the help of enzyme also occurs together to bring about what we say the complement reaction or the complement system or a biochemical cascade of reactions. So this is derived from many small plasma proteins that work together for cytolysis, for the breakdown of cell wall. By rupturing the target cell's plasma membrane, usually the bacterial cell membrane or the viral cell membrane will be lysed or broken down by this mechanism of complement proteins or the group of small plasma proteins. So as the name indicates, all these proteins are present in the plasma, blood plasma. So the complement system, it also helps in the activation of antigen antibody complexes. That means it helps in the formation of antigen antibody complexes, and when the antigen antibody complex is formed, you can see the complement enzymes, they try to create holes in the plasma membrane of foreign microbes, and which brings about the lysis of the cell, that is the bacterial cell. But the complement system is considered as a non-specific defense mechanism, but it can be activated against the specific microbes also, particularly when the microbes are marked or immobilized by the antibodies. So thereby complement system will see even in the case of adaptive immunity also. So as I told you, there will be overlapping of both adaptive and also innate immunity responses or the humoral responses. And this complementary system of plasma proteins also plays very important role in understanding and in curing the diseases like blood transfusion or hemolytic blood transfusion. Reactions may occur, particularly if a non-compatible blood group is given during the blood transfusion. That means, for example, if a blood group person is given B blood group, that is a blood with the B blood group, so usually it leads to the coagulation of blood and the person is going to die. The reason is that a person with A blood group will have A antigen on the RBC, and the person with A blood group also will have B plasma proteins in the form of antibodies. But the person with B blood group will have B antigens on the RBC, but he will have A antigens in the blood plasma. Thereby, when the antigen A combines with the antigen antibody A, similarly, when the antigen B combines with the antibody B, it leads to the coagulation of blood and the person may die. That means in the case of blood transfusion, we should be very careful, because in the plasma we have a lot of plasma proteins, which also include the various types of antibodies. So thereby it should not lead to the coagulation. So thereby there should not be any inappropriate donation of the blood. What I mean to say is that when a blood group person can receive the blood only from the person with A blood group, and also he can receive the blood from O blood group person, but not from the B blood group person. So similarly, there is one more type of disease, that is a hemolytic disease, which is called the erythroblastosis fetalis. So where the newborn or the baby fetus which is developing in the womb of the mother will be usually Rh positive, but the mother will be Rh negative. So thereby in the mother blood there will be Rh antibodies, but without the Rh antigens, whereas the fetal blood will be having the Rh antigens, because the fetal blood is Rh positive. So thereby when the circulation of the blood, when these Rh antigens they try to circulate in, they try to enter through the placenta into the blood of mother, the mother's blood will react, and it will start producing the antibodies. So these antibodies, they reach the fetal circulation, which cause the lysis of the RBC cells of the developing fetus, the newborn. That is why particularly the survival of the fetus and also the newborn will be very less in the case where the fetus will be Rh positive and the mother will be Rh negative. This is nothing but the erythroblastosis fetalis, where the fetus usually dies because of this coagulation of the blood because of various types of complement proteins. So that means here in the medical field, all these things will be taken care. So even the pregnant woman who is Rh negative, they will be given some immunosuppressors, so that the diseases like erythroblastosis fetalis are controlled, and the individuals can have the normal healthy babies. So coming back to our main discussion, as we have seen just now, a complement system mainly is involved in the destruction of pathogen by cell lysis. The complement proteins, they also enhance phagocytosis by the immobilization of the bacterium, by the formation of the antigen antibody complex on the surface of the cell membrane of the pathogen. This mechanism of immobilization of pathogen by the formation of antigen antibody complex, it is called opsonization, which is usually followed by the phagocytosis. And the complement system of proteins, they also stimulate the various inflammatory reactions like swelling, pain, and also the reddening of the area. Apart from that, the cytokines, the complement proteins or plasma proteins, they also cause the chemotaxis. They give the cell signaling. They attract or they call other macrophages, other WBC cells like neutrophils to the site of injury. So thereby cytokines, they play a very important role, or the plasma proteins, they play a very important role in the humoral response of second line of defense. So this inflammatory processes will continue till the infection has been eradicated. So once the infection gets eradicated, then the cells, as I told you, the number of cells may raised from 10,000 to say 1 million or 2 millions as per the need of the body. The number of WBC cells is enormous at the time of healing process. Suppose if the same number of WBC cells are retained in the blood, we know that it leads to the leukemia or blood cancer. Blood cancer is nothing but excessive presence of WBC cells, which is called the leukemia. That's why leukocytes are nothing but the colorless blood cells. So thereby, to remove these extra cells, usually in a healthy body, there will be quick removal of all these WBC cells once the process of healing has been completed. So these phagocytes, they continue to consume and destroy the bacteria, and the acquired immune system binds and disposes of harmful toxins. So during this process of fighting, we have seen there will be formation of pus, and pus is nothing but the debris left over from the battle between the invaders and the immune system. And the color of the pus also depends on the nature of pathogen. That is, bacterial pus will be yellow in color, whereas fungal pus will be white in color. So after the formation of pus, we'll see the actual process of healing will occur, that includes the end of inflammatory responses. The end of inflammatory responses is represented by apoptosis. So apoptosis is nothing but programmed cell death of all the excessive cells. So when these cells of the body, usually they die in a normal fashion also, particularly if they are damaged cells, these cells will not be supplied with the nutrients. So this causes the necrotic death. Apart from that, during immunological reactions, we also see two types of initiation of apoptosis. Apoptosis is nothing but programmed cell death. So apoptosis is initiated when a chemical signal is received that indicates that the cell should kill itself. So it does so. So apoptosis signals are received by the cells. When their function is over, all the WBC cells, they receive the signal from the cells saying that their function is over, then now they have to die or they have to commit the suicide. So such type of programmed cell death is nothing but the apoptosis. So their cells, they receive the apoptotic signals and they start dying. There is another way of initiating the apoptosis. That is, we have one group of cells called the T helper cells. These T helper cells, they continuously emit the chemicals called cytokines, which give the signal, that is stay alive signal, to the all the WBC cells which are involved in the second line of defense mechanism. So as long as they get the signal, these cells, they try to stay alive. Once they stop getting the signals from these T helper cells, they start killing themselves. So thereby apoptosis is also initiated when the WBC cells, varieties of neutrophils, macrophages and other types of cells, when they stop receiving the stay alive signal from the T helper cells. So at the end of the inflammatory reactions, after the formation of pus, you see the wound will start getting healed up, and you can see the formation of some dark brown color cells, and the injured area will be sealed off from the rest of the tissues, so that it will prevent the further infection or the injury of the area. So this programmed cell death is nothing but the apoptosis. Suppose if the healing process is not good, or if there is a defective or dysfunctional healing process, it may lead to the formation of the scars. As you see in this slide, you all must have seen some scars like this, which indicate the dysfunctional wound healing. But usually after the formation of reddish brown color scar, usually the skin will regenerate, and after a few days you will also will not be able to, or at least identify the injured area. That means the repair or the healing mechanism is highly perfect in the case of functional healing mechanism. So apart from these secretions, we also have some special secretions in the case of viral infections, because viruses, when they infect the cells, they try to enter into the host cells and they multiply inside the body of the host cells. So thereby the infected host cells, they start producing some special chemicals called the interferons. So these interferons, they induce the nearby non-infected cells to produce antiviral enzymes. The healthy host cells, they get the signals from the interferons released by the infected host cells. Thereby, they try to transform their plasma proteins on their surface so that they start producing antiviral enzymes so that the virus will not enter into the healthy cells. So similarly, these antiviral enzymes, interferons, which are secreted by the infected host cells, they also try to block the translocation of viral messenger RNA into polypeptide. So thereby the virus will not be able to multiply inside the body cells. So this is a usual case, particularly in the case of normal infection of the viruses. But probably in the case of coronavirus, just because it is a novel, it is a new type of virus which is infecting the humans, this mechanism, probably the mechanism of production of interferons fails to occur, thereby our body may not be able to fight against these pathogens. Otherwise, if the person recovers from the COVID-19 disease, usually the plasma of the patient, COVID patient who has recovered from this disease, usually it will be having more number of plasma proteins, particularly the interferons, so which will be helpful to treat other patient who are suffering from the COVID-19. So similarly, interferons are very much helpful to fight against the short-term viral infections such as cold and also influenza. So thereby interferons are commercially synthesized by using recombinant DNA technology, and they interferon plasma proteins, they are given as injections to treat various viral infections. So you can see here in this slide how a virus is entering into a host cell. Virus is a non-living particle. It cannot multiply outside the body of the host. So for its multiplication, for its reproduction, it always requires the host cell. So once after it enters into the host cell, it will combine with the host DNA and it will start multiplication. Somehow the host DNA will try to identify the foreign DNA or the RNA, and it will start producing some special chemical compounds, biochemical compounds called interferons. So these interferons, they try to inhibit the further viral multiplication inside the infected host cell. Apart from that, they also invite cells like natural killer cells to kill them. That means the infected host cell, when it understands that it is not able to overcome the viral infection, then it will invite the natural killer cell to kill it. So in that way, natural killer cells, they attack the host infected cells when they produce the interferons and they try to kill the host cells. Similarly, the interferons which are secreted by the infected host cells, they also activate the neighboring healthy cells. They activate or they stimulate or they signal. They signal the host healthy cells to transform themselves or to become more resistant to the viruses so that the virus will not attack the healthy cells. That is how our body has got inbuilt or inherent or innate ability to fight against the varieties of viruses also by producing the interferons. So apart from that, we have one more important mechanism involved as a second line of body defense, particularly if the antigen is non-pathogenic. So allergy is a separate inflammatory immune response to a non-pathogenic antigen. So I repeat, therefore, an allergy is an inflammatory immune response to a non-pathogenic antigen. A non-pathogenic antigen is therefore also called allergen. So antigen as such may not be harmful to the body, but if someone is sensitive to the antigen, then the body produces an inflammatory response to get rid of the antigen or the allergen. That means any substance can act as an allergen, even a non-harmful substance. We know that some people will be allergic to the curds, some people will be allergic to the brinjals. Like that, some people, they may be allergic to the dust, some people will be allergic to the mites. Like that, we have varieties of allergens. So allergy reaction is nothing but the inflammatory response to the non-harmful pathogen. So these allergic reactions are the responses, may be mild responses of the tissue, or they may be chronic responses or fatal reactions too. And particularly if the allergic reactions are very fatal, then it is called sensitivity of the body or hypersensitivity of the body. This hypersensitivity of the body or the chronic allergic reactions will also be two types. Sometimes the hypersensitivity reaction may be immediate or very quick. So in that case, what will happen is that the immune destruction will be taking place because of the excessive secretion of the antibodies within no time of exposure of the body to the antigens, which are called the allergens. So thereby, immediate hypersensitivity is said to be very much harmful or fatal when compared to the delayed hypersensitivity. In the case of delayed hypersensitivity, which is usually mediated by T helper cells and also the macrophages, usually the lag period will be very high. That means the body may take several days to develop the sensitivity. Particularly, usually in the case of re-exposure of the body to the same allergens, usually the body will show more strong and also the rapid allergic reaction. So thereby, allergens bind to special antibodies called immunoglobulins E, which are already present in the mast cells. And we know that mast cells are nothing but activated basionophils. So presence of allergens triggers immediate release of histamines and also the cytokines. We know that the histamines, they cause the vasodilation. So the severity of this reaction varies, ranging from localized reactions near the site where the allergens have entered, which leads to usually the skin rashes, to the most severe allergic reactions called the anaphylaxis. That is nothing but the severe hypersensitivity. In an anaphylactic reaction, massive release of histamines and other cytokine causes widespread vasodilation and circulatory collapse, and it may also result in severe bronchoconstriction. That is the constriction of the collapsing of the blood vessels in the respiratory system. Unless it is treated promptly, it may lead to the anaphylaxis or it may cause the death also. So usual allergic diseases include the bronchitis and also the asthma. So to know whether the person is allergic to a particular chemical or an antibody or a particular food, usually a skin test is conducted, that is called allergy test. So in the allergy test, usually the allergens are injected into the skin in a small localized area to find out what one might be allergic to or not, so that the further exposure of the person to the same antibodies or allergens can be done. Suppose the person does not show any reaction. Suppose if the person is allergic to the particular antibiotic like penicillin, usually the allergen that causes the immediate hypersensitivity that causes the withdrawal of the antibody, so that the person will not receive that antibody. Similarly, apart from the various types of medicines, we also have natural anti-allergens or the antigens, which are allergens. They include the bee stings, pollen, and certain types of food. And also, we know that in the case of foods, we have particularly some people allergic to the lactose, which is present in the curds. And the allergies are also caused uh, particularly in the diseases like rhinitis and asthma, which may be due to the dust of some mites also. So the dust mites are called the dermatophagoids. It is not their bodies that cause the reactions, but rather the fecal matter of these mites which causes the allergy. So these allergic attacks usually can be treated or stopped by giving the antihistamine tablets or the medicines. Why? Because the allergy is mainly due to the release of histamines. So we get the antihistamine drugs like cetirizine in the market, and also we have various types of nasal sprays which will act as the antihistamines, and they help us to control the allergic diseases. We have various types of commonly observed allergic diseases in humans, including the itching in the hair or in the head region because of the ectoparasites like head loss. There may be angioedema or the mumps, what we call near the cheeks region or just below the ears, and conjunctivitis of the eyes, rhinitis, the running nose, and also laryngeal edema. So we have studied in the last class that in the pharynx region we have a lot of tonsils. When they get inflamed due to inflammatory allergic reactions, we have the laryngeal edema. Similarly, the lungs also may develop the allergy. There is nothing but the asthma or bronchospasm, and low BP also may be caused due to the allergic reactions. Similarly, the inflammations or the reactions or the allergic reactions of the heart are also observed in the case of dysrhythmiosis. Similarly, the gastrointestinal cramps and the malabsorption of food also may be caused due to the allergy. And these two important allergic reactions are very common, particularly conjunctivitis and also the skin rashes, which are usually treated with the antihistamine tablets like the cetirizine. So you can see what is going to happen when the non-pathogenic allergen is entering into the body. The macrophages, they are trying to engulf this, and they are presenting the antigen, which is non-pathogenic, to the B lymphocytes, and the B lymphocytes, they start producing the antibodies. These antibodies, they go and bind to the specific antigens on the mast cells. So these mast cells, they start producing lot of histamine. So the released histamine causes the inflammatory response, which causes the swelling or the bronchodilation. It is nothing but the bronchitis or the asthma or the dilation of blood vessels and collapse of the respiratory system. So thereby the person will be coughing continuously. So this is the one more beautiful slide I am showing you to understand the process of phagocytosis. Here you can see a dendritic phagocyte, which is very big in size when compared to the size of the bacteria, and you can see it is sending a lot of elongated pseudopodia to engulf this bacteria which are infecting the tissues. Similarly, we have one more dendritic cell which is actively involved in the phagocytosis, and it is eating away the bacterial cell. This is another dendritic cell showing only the pseudopodia. You can see the dendritic cells, they produce a numerous number of pseudopodia to kill the bacterium. Similarly, we have the macrophages confronting the pathogens. So macrophages are nothing but the activated monocytes. So the macrophages, they also produce the pseudopodia to engulf the bacterium. Similarly, we have macrophages engulfing the bacteria. Then we also have lymphocytes. These are the cytotoxic lymphocytes. Though they are small, they are trying to attack large tumor cells. They are trying to kill large number of tumor cells. That is the power. Can be compared to the army people, army soldiers. So army soldiers, when they confront the enemy, they don't ask anything. They don't inquire what is his name and he's from which country. When they see the enemy crossing the border, they simply start killing them. Similarly, the cytotoxic cells, when they find these tumor cells, they start killing them. So here you see the inner view of a blood vessel filled with lot of blood. You can see lot of RBC cells. Apart from that, you see a virus here, coronavirus, which is being attacked by number of antibodies. You can see here the virus, as soon as it enters the blood, you can see number of antibodies. They are trying to attack the virus so that the virus will get immobilized. So these are all nothing but the humoral responses as a part of second line of body defense. So here you can see the opsonization or the immobilization of the bacterium by attacking the antigens of the plasma membrane of the bacterium by the antibodies. You can see the number of antibodies. They are going to go near the antigens and they form the antigen-antibody complex so that the bacterium will be immobilized. It will not be able to move further. So thereby, it facilitates what we call the opsonization or the breakdown of wall of bacterium by means of the complementary proteins. This is another beautiful slide showing the multiplication of Plasmodium, which is an intracellular pathogen. It will go into the RBC cell. It invades the RBC cells. It will eat away the RBC cells and it will multiply itself. After its multiplication, it will try to destroy or lyse the plasma membrane of RBC cells and it will release the various. So same mechanism is involved in the multiplication of viruses also, including the coronavirus. So these viruses, they also try to invade the usually mucoepithelial cells. In the mucoepithelial cells, they try to multiply themselves by utilizing the cell content. Thereby the cells will die. So at the end, we'll try to recollect some of the important questions which can be answered based on the today's class. So first and foremost question is, write a note on role of fever in body defense. Second question is, what is allergy? Third question is, note the function of apoptosis in body defense. The fourth one is, explain the role of complement system and body immunity. Fifth one is, what is cellular barrier in the immunity of body? Sixth one is, give an account on inflammatory responses to pathogens. Seventh one is, briefly discuss second line of body defense. Eighth one is, write an explanatory note on innate immunity in man. So with that, we have come to the end of lecture on second line of body defense under immunology. In the next class, we are going to study about the third line of body defense. Thank you, and we'll end